Good morning, everyone. Always a bit disconcerting, but I can see some faces popping up in the corners. So I think we've managed to go live, which is brilliant. A very big welcome to everyone joining our Magic Morning. I know lots of you have joined previous Magic Mornings, so you probably know the drill. Welcome to those who maybe it's your first. Today is very much an opportunity to share with all of you our new strategy for 2040, Nourishing Futures. But first, a few housekeeping bits and introductions. So for those of you who I haven't had the joy of meeting, my name's Lindsey MacDonald. I'm the Chief Executive of Magic Breakfast. And in terms of today's event, just for those of you who are new to Teams or haven't had an opportunity to use it before, you are able to enable your live captions just by clicking on the three dots at the top where it says More, and then there's a language and settings and enable captions. There'll also be a recording of this shared on YouTube afterwards. And that will again get populated with captions. Most importantly, I think for these events is always the Q&A. So making sure that you please do add your questions as we go along. You'll be able to add them at the end as well, but I know sometimes questions can pop into your head as you're hearing the various speakers. And we have some fantastic speakers today after I've spoken who are going to bring the real reality and the real magic of Magic Breakfast, school breakfasts to life for us. But first, I'm going to kick off by sharing, for those of you who haven't had a chance yet to hear about it, sharing our Nourishing Futures strategy. One of the first questions that I am asked about is often, why 2040? Why 15 years in terms of the timeline for Nourishing Futures? And as we'll come to, and as many of you know, we are at a really exciting and pivotal moment for Magic Breakfast and our mission in terms of the rising awareness, support, and increased government commitment and direction of commitment for school breakfasts. And what that means is that the short term, the next, let's say, 5 years or so, feel like they could go in lots of different directions. And what we wanted to set out was a real North Star, something that we could hold fast to, that would guide us through the various kind of operational and maybe political changes that are undoubtedly going to come for us, and keep us really focused on what matters. And as I say, that North Star. So we'll come on to that in a moment. But first, as I say, I want to just tell you a little bit about what this new chapter is all about. Now, before we go forward, I think it's really important to stop and celebrate, especially given all of you being on today's Magic Morning. It is so exciting to, pause and reflect on the, incredible journey and achievements of Magic Breakfast in the past more than 20 years. And that is down to, obviously the team at Magic Breakfast over the years, the trustees, but our community of change makers really does include all of our partner schools, the teachers, the volunteers, the teaching assistants, the people who make breakfast happen every day, our wonderful supporters, our partners in the charity sector who help amplify the need, the importance, and the impact of breakfast. So the journey and the achievements really are a shared one. And obviously, most importantly, the children and young people who on a daily basis fill school breakfast clubs with their curiosity, with their laughter, and with their joy, and are never afraid to give us some very constructive and helpful feedback. For over 20 years, we have worked together to ensure that every child can start their day nourished and really ready to learn. And I think what has always inspired me and impressed me about Magic Breakfast is that it's always been an organization looking to learn, taking on the evidence, taking on the feedback, as I say, taking on the changes, whether that was through lockdown with COVID, whether it's through increased understanding of the nutritional opportunities and impact of school food. We have continued to learn so much and continuously made that case for breakfast. And as I say, this strategy really does come at such a pivotal moment because the proven benefits of school breakfasts are now widely recognised, whether that's by educators, policymakers, and the public. And with your support and so many, many others, Magic Breakfast has really helped to catalyse this movement, delivering and advocating for inclusive and nutritious and, importantly, non-stigmatising school breakfasts. But the fundamental shifts that we really are experiencing and hoping for and creating in our universe mean that we have to stop and listen and reevaluate. And we have heard a lot of voices talking about, especially since the government commitment in England to, eventually moving to rolling out primary aged school breakfast. We've heard a lot of voices talking about the logistics of school breakfasts. How do you get enough food? How do we get enough staff? Is there enough funding to make these policies and these programs succeed? But what we heard when we really challenged ourselves and listened carefully, and really thought about, what are the children and young people, what are the schools saying to us, was to start reflecting on and being more aware and curious about the experience, about the magic that was actually taking place in those school settings. We heard from children and young people, parents and school staff, those with real frontline lived experience, that breakfast is about so much more than food. And what came through really strongly were words like connection, calm, confidence that it gave people, and that this is what made breakfast really magical. So what does that mean for Magic Breakfast and our new strategy? So Nourishing Futures will see us step beyond, I suppose, a child or a young person's needs, and that absolutely central focus that we remain intentional about to alleviate hunger, but actually making sure as well that school breakfasts provide children and young people with what they want, what we all want really, to be nourished, to be empowered and to thrive. So what that means is that our mission is expanding, and I think it really is increasing its not just ambition, but its inclusivity as well, for every child and young person to feel as though a school breakfast environment is something that will enable their future and their life chances. And recognising as well, I think, that our own role isn't just to provide the breakfasts and to get those bagels and cereals and porridges and beans and milk and fruit and veg to the schools, but also importantly, and never more importantly, I think, be that catalyst for the impact that we know a school breakfast can have, to really move the conversation beyond logistics to a focus on a child's rights, to a child's well-being, and really being led by children's experiences. So something that has been, again, asked quite often, and as you can imagine, particularly by team members, by trustees, is how do we get from today to that future, that distant future? How will we get from here to there that arguably we can't even define, possibly even imagine? And we've set ourselves 3 really ambitious goals with an eye to 2040. And I'm going to take you through those in a moment. But one of the things to reflect on is that 15 years from now, if we put that into context, it means that a child who started nursery school just this September will be finishing secondary school when this strategy ends. So the length and the duration of Nourishing Futures actually takes us through a child's entire educational experience. And we hope, if depending on where they've gone to school, which shouldn't be the postcode lottery that it is, but we hope that they would have had, by the end of this strategy, nearly 3,000 breakfasts at the start of their school day. So the 3 goals that we are going to be focusing on is absolutely remaining focused on what so many of you have helped us with for the past 20 plus years, ensuring every single day that nourishing breakfasts are being provided to as many pupils as possible. And I think this really encompasses what Magic Breakfast has always been about, not just the delivery of breakfasts. And if we think about this morning, over 300,000 children and young people will hopefully have just been polishing off their magical breakfasts. But it's also about making that case to policymakers, to governments, to school leaders. So the advocacy work that we do as well. So what we recognise in Goal 1 is that we'll be hopefully delivering an awful lot more breakfasts in the years ahead, but we'll also be making sure that others are providing that non-stigma, hunger-focused, barrier-free breakfast. And we hope that obviously today is quite the day for a magic morning. We have the budget later, and we hope that we'll be able to celebrate some real step forwards in this space as well later this week. So Goal 2 is about reducing child morning hunger, its root causes, and doing so in partnership with others. Because what we absolutely recognise is that we can't do this alone, and we can't truly end child morning hunger without partners and without greater ambition. And one of the things that we have really done, and for those of you who have been with Magic Breakfast in our kind of past few years of our business plan, we introduced some new values, and one of them, and one of our strategic priorities, was about greater collaboration, not just internally, but externally as well. And we've built some brilliant coalitions, some wonderful partnerships, some of which in recent weeks have been award winning. So with the National Literacy Trust, thanks to support from Arch Insurance, we won Charity Partnership of the Year. And that was about bringing reading into breakfast clubs, again, enhancing the experience and the opportunity for children and young people. And then goal 3, empowering children and young people to define and assess the value of breakfasts. What we don't want to do is create a future that ultimately adults have determined and imagined and created. What we believe is that children and young people are the experts in their own lives. As I said earlier, they are never shy to give feedback, and that's always the best way for us to improve our provision and improve our impact. And what we want to enable through this goal is how they can shape breakfast, how they shape how breakfast is experienced, how it's understood, and what policymakers, what school leaders, what the system really prioritizes and values in terms of that impact of school breakfasts. What we fundamentally believe is that we have an education system that has so much potential, but is absolutely under so much strain. But children and young people can and should be central to changing that system overall. And I think there's also the reassurance to reflect in terms of defining and protecting what we're calling the magic of Magic Breakfast, that, that quality that we know it goes beyond a bowl or a plate of food. We have done this process before. We have already piloted, evidence scaled, and embedded breakfast provision in so many schools, over 1,000 schools now working with Magic Breakfast, and many more schools on the cusp of benefiting from school breakfast because of the advocacy, because of the evidence that Magic Breakfast and its partners have delivered. But what we want to do is make sure that the experience, the magic around a nutritious breakfast, that nurturing environment, that support, that warm welcome at the beginning of the day, and all of the things that I know our next three speakers are going to be talking about and shining a light on, that magic, that experience. What we want to do over the next 15 years is really enable that to protect and ensure the impact of what a school breakfast can deliver. So if we think, though, that all of our focus is on 15 years' time, we are absolutely, laser focused, I think is probably the best way to describe it, on continuing to deliver change and impact in the short term. Because as I said at the beginning, it is both an exciting and pivotal moment for children and young people, particularly those at risk of hunger at the start of the school day. And I think we've grown more confident over the past few years in holding the tension of tackling child morning hunger today, but also working to end it for good. And we want to continue focusing on that, as I say, as we navigate the 2 national pilots that are currently happening in England and Scotland. So continue to deliver nourishing breakfasts. And over the next 3 years, as part of the first phase of our Nourishing Future strategy, we'll deliver at least 150 million nourishing breakfasts. We want to continue to advocate for children and young people, but we want to make sure that we continue our focus on those children and young people at risk of being either not supported, not included in these policies, and a real focus at the moment on children with additional needs, special educational needs and disabilities, and those who are at risk of greatest hunger. We will work to co-develop how school breakfasts deliver impact, and thinking about that from nursery to secondary, really thinking about that child's entire educational journey. Continuing to partner and to collaborate to address the root causes of child morning hunger. And later this year, or I suppose actually now we're going to have to say early next year, in 2026, later this academic year, we'll be publishing the root causes as we identified them of child morning hunger, giving an opportunity for organisations, for partners to see what role they might play in reducing the routes into child morning hunger in a morning, but also in alleviating and breaking those connections, which will ultimately end it in a systemic way. And absolutely fundamental is that co-creation, child-led evaluation tools, so that we can start to pilot, to test and define what the magic really is in a school breakfast environment. And importantly, and unfortunately, nothing is really going to happen unless we have the resources and the support that we need. So we are focused on retaining and developing new and exciting partnerships, but raising at least £30 million over the next 3 years to sustain this breakfast provision while we continue to scale and support. So, as I say, this morning, over 300,000 children and young people walked into a school relying upon a magic breakfast, and that reliance, that expectation, will continue while we wait for the government to step in and deliver on their promises. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview of the impact that we're going to deliver, how all of this comes together. Fundamentally, the thing that we want to share is that this is a strategy that we have set out with big ambition, with long-term vision, and with a real reliance and desire to do it with others. We can't do this alone, but we are on the brink together, on the brink of such potential and real everlasting, meaningful change for children and young people, and the mission that Magic Breakfast was set up to achieve so many years ago. But we do need people's support. We need your ideas, your challenge, your creativity. So we are very much asking for and hoping for feedback, for offers of support, for advice. We know that lots of people have worked in these areas before, and we recognise that while pupils are still turning up hungry every day across the UK, but we can change that together, and we really look forward to working with all of you. So I'm going to stop sharing now, hopefully, if I possibly can. There we go. And I think what's always most interesting, I know, for these Magic Morning sessions is actually the reality of translating strategy on a PowerPoint into meaningful and visible impact in the schools. And the first school that we're going to visit is one very dear to Magic Breakfast's heart, one because they have been with us for such a long time, but also because their head, who is joining us this morning, Julie Harkness, is also a trustee of Magic Breakfast. So as well as helping to provide that leadership in the classrooms and at the start of the school day every day, she's also providing that leadership as our own organisation's governance and strategic settings. So Julie, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Harkness. I'm Vice Principal at Carr Manor Community School. Carr Manor Community School is a through school, which is quite unusual. So we have children in our school who are 2 years old and children who are beyond 16, even in some cases, and the full range in between, clearly. And we also have a resource provision for children with autism in school. We are a truly comprehensive school. We work very much around a relational and restorative basis, which is a really important part of what shapes us and who we are, and perhaps some of the conversation that we're having today. We do have significant numbers of children who live in the lowest indices of multiple deprivation, with the least access to services across the city. We also have a range of children who are not in that same position. We have about 70 languages spoken in school. I think at the moment it's about 67, I think, but it does vary slightly. We have high numbers of children who have additional special needs as well, as a very mixed cohort. So it feels like a truly comprehensive part of community. As Lindsay alluded to, we have an established relationship with Magic Breakfast. We have an established relationship with running a breakfast club, and it's a really important part of a day for us in our school. And the importance of it is what has led me to become a trustee and to be in that kind of privileged position to have some influence on what that feels like nationally. So I did think, what is it about a crumpet or about Weetabix or indeed porridge that really makes magic? And it's quite a difficult question to make the connection. But I do know that for some of our children, a lot of our children are living in quite turbulent households. They're not necessarily warm. They haven't necessarily got a clean uniform. There may not even be a table in the space. The cupboard can be empty, and quite a few of our children are experiencing food poverty. And as part of that, they're also experiencing not just hunger, but a level of responsibility. They're also experiencing a sense that they're missing the aspect that many of us would have to sit down at a meal and share a meal with a family, and to have those discussions and develop those pro-social skills and that emotional connection with food that's so important for children, for them to, as they grow into adults. And so I think for us as a school, and I think for us as a charity, it's really important, not the what of breakfast, but also the how of breakfast, that breakfast needs to feel like you're being loved, that you're in a warm space, that you're in a comfortable space, that you're welcomed in warmly, and that it's a quiet, calm start to a day, and a day where you feel like you belong somewhere. Belong is a very big word in education at the moment, but I think long before it became a fashionable word, the very best of us have that sense that it's really, really important, a part of education. So we are part of, as a school, part of the early adopter scheme. So we've been very lucky to have some support from the government around what it looks like and feels like for primary age children to have their breakfast. And I think that's been a really interesting experience as people who haven't had breakfast clubs before start up, and it's felt a little bit utilitarian in terms of what I don't know about industrial toasters now after some of the meetings is probably not worth knowing, but it's been a really important part of establishing that children in primary ages do not come to school hungry, a really important part nationally. But I think, as I've just said, the what is important as the how. And perhaps an example I would give to explain what I mean is that if we went to a restaurant and were, for our birthday or some other lovely event, and we went and the people who brought us our food threw it down on the table, didn't speak to us, didn't smile, weren't pleasant, actually, that would very much change our restaurant experience for us. And in the same way, for a child that perhaps is suffering from food poverty at home and is operating as an underserved member of society, that warmth in the morning, that welcome, that chance to have an activity, that chance to perhaps have a conversation with a friend, that chance to sit at a table and not to be hungry is about so much more than the food itself. It's about the greeting they get. It's about feeling cherished and feeling that they belong. I would take us right back to the 1950s and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And actually the very base level of Maslow's triangle, as we will mainly think about, is around those basic things we need to survive. But as we move up through the levels, for children to really achieve, it is around children having a base sense of feeling safe and belonging and cared for. And I think that's the real strength in what we're able to offer in a breakfast club and our breakfast club. And we do that. We have lots of activities. We have a breakfast club that children can come to, whether they're in primary or secondary. And I'll talk a little bit about secondary in a minute. We also have a classroom bagel offer so that children are able to have breakfast on entry to school. We also do a playground offer so that as children come into school, that's on offer, and it's an offer to all children. So all children have the option to have something to eat first thing in the morning. And I think we've also been able to use that as a strategy to support attendance of children who find that difficult, to support families where it's a lot more than just breakfast. It's about avoiding some of the cohesive breakdowns that happen in family homes, and have been able to support people from actually becoming at greater risk as a family as well. Certainly, we are really careful to make sure that we maximise that time, and we include things like reading intervention and reading clubs, as well as a whole range of activities, so that our children start with a really smooth start to the day. And we can see that in our attendance rates, we can see that in our overall achievement, and we can see that in how settled and how children have developed some of their social emotional skills, are able to manage conflict, are able to discuss conflict, are able to enter that day with a really positive start into a classroom, making such a difference to their ability to control their executive function and do really well in school. It's interesting as a through school, because I think of the children that I have been talking about, and when they become 11, they are still hungry. In fact, possibly more hungry. It's a time at which they're hitting adolescence. They've got physical changes, emotional changes, social changes. And I think in some ways, breakfast is even more important as you hit the age of secondary at the same time. And we have to sit the concept, I think, as secondary. So in our secondary provision, we have a breakfast club. We also have a playground offer. We have an offer at a window, which is a grab and go offer. We also have an offer for those children coming in late to school. So there's exactly that same offer. And our take up is pretty strong. And I think our take up is pretty strong for exactly the same reasons. It's about developing a relationship with food, a relationship with the people around you, and feeling that you're in a really safe, welcoming place that is wanting you to be there and is valuing you as an individual and a human being. It can well be the first time you're listened to in a day. So that whole sense of the culture of how Breakfast Club runs for us makes a significant difference to our uptake, I think. We do have quite a few children who are and young people who are carers. And often we do find that what that means in a morning is that in a household that is perhaps struggling, that the young people are the most responsible people there, and that they are perhaps, again, getting up. They are having to manage the household to a degree if their family is not able to. They are managing their younger siblings, quite often then taking them to school. And actually having breakfast clubs at primary enables them to get to school on time, but also it means that they're arriving at school, perhaps having done a lot of caring and not having had an individual, not being able to actually eat themselves. And it does allow, therefore, that they are able to do that in a place that's really welcoming for them, and recognises actually the resilience they've shown beyond that which many adults will have to in a morning. Our children at secondary do have the vast range of experiences. So again, there are lots of activities that we put on first thing in the morning to support children's welcome to school with that. And I think building that culture of listening to children, using that to help us shape the provision, using that to weave in some of those aspects around children's concept of body image, how breakfast has an influence on that, what a relationship with food means longer term, because for many of our secondary children that can be a confusing issue. Additionally, because all of our children do get food all of the time and get breakfast via Magic Breakfast, who've been a great support in our work with primary and secondary, and our inclusion of our resource provision in the offer where we can, that means that actually we end up having a position where we're able to think about how the whole culture supports that start to the day and supports children's emotional well-being as part of that. And that's really significant for many of our teenagers and young people at this point. I think for us, we see that a village raises a child, and our work around breakfast, around our community, is a social activity, and that food is a social activity, and that concept of breaking bread together and feeling what that feels like as a 4-year-old, what that feels like as a 14-year-old, gives us has given us a really good vantage point in terms of what young people feel and need a breakfast time to look like for it to really have impact beyond just not being hungry. And I think as a final point, I think we make a good use of thinking about children's advocacy in this, in terms of using children's voice and influence as young people, and truly listening to their experience and shaping what breakfast looks like for them, and shaping how they can advocate for themselves within the structures that exist to make the very most of their time at school and to grow up into citizens that will shape their world and navigate their world in what is an increasingly complex landscape. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. And just as a reminder, because I know I had about 20 questions that popped into my mind and things that I would love to pick up on the back of that brilliant overview, please do add them to the Q&A. We're now going to head north to Miller Primary School in Glasgow, and I am delighted to welcome their principal, Amanda Griffin, and head teacher, Lorraine Pearce. Morning. Thank you so much.
Morning. Hi, morning. We're just going to share our slides. Just give us a wee second. Hopefully we are. There we go. Fingers crossed the magic moment works. Can you all see the slides okay?
Yep, lots of thumbs up.
Perfect. Okay, well, good morning and thank you for asking us to come and speak about the Magic Breakfast. Our school is very passionate about the Magic Breakfast, and so we're just going to go through a few slides and things, but the most important people on this slide will be the children. So we're ending with a little video of the children telling you about their Magic Breakfast experience in the school. So we are a school in Castlemilk and we have 214 pupils at the moment, and we have an inclusion base for children with social and emotional behavioural needs. So we offer whole school breakfast with the Magic Breakfast, and we call it Breakfast in a Blether. We are predominantly an area of deprivation, with 86% of our children living in the multiple indices 1 and 2. And as you can understand, with that comes a lot of issues with poverty and food shortages and things like that. We're very aware of the cost of living crisis. In fact, we've actually had our good practice shared on the Child Poverty Action Group website, because we've set up a clear closet to give children all the basics that they need coming into school and families. And we've also kind of got a pre-loved clothing stall, including like jackets and things like that to keep children warm. So when I heard about the Magic Breakfast, I thought that would just fit in absolutely perfectly with what we were trying to establish here in our school. Another complication of our area in Castlemilk in Glasgow is that there are no local supermarkets. The children and parents have to get onto a bus, and they're a good 20 minutes in a bus ride down to a local Asda, and that's the nearest supermarket they've got. So our parents, as well as not having a lot of money, are having to rely on local shops unless they can take their family away down to Asda. And so that's an ongoing campaign within Castlemilk to try and get a supermarket to reduce the cost of food. So as you can imagine, the Magic Breakfast has been an absolute miracle for us all. As I say, we've got 37% of our children in the mainstream school with additional needs as well. And the biggest impact I think that we were hoping that Magic Breakfast would make is because we have poor attendance, particularly and late coming in the mornings, because only 76% of our children are above 90% in term 1 this year. But if you compare that to last year, before we started the Magic Breakfast, it was a lot less. And the good news is that we've got 83% of our children now uptaking breakfast every morning in school, thanks to the Magic Breakfast. I'm just about to hand you over to Amanda, my principal teacher, but I went to the local high school and they were doing a Magic Breakfast club, and I got Jill's details from there, and I contacted Jill and we came up with the concept of Breakfast in a Blether. And since we've launched Magic Breakfast, I have managed to recruit another few schools from Scotland who have high deprivation into the Magic Breakfast. So I'm going to pass you to Amanda, who's going to tell you a wee bit more.
Oops, have I clicked on? There we are.
Um,
Yeah, thank you. So our plan was, instead of, because we already have a breakfast club that some of our children can access through the dinner hall, we wanted to offer every single child in the school a breakfast through the Magic Breakfast. We didn't want there to be any stigma of children that have to go, you know, or to a different room or to access this. We wanted it to be inclusive for all and a really nice experience. You know, they come in the morning, we have breakfast, we have a wee blether, we have a chat. Some of the classes put up a little activity, you know, a would you rather activity or things to get the children talking, and just that little engagement in the morning. There's no pressure, they come in and breakfast is provided. We don't make a huge deal if children are late or anything either. They're still offered, you know, go and grab a bowl, get some cereal and then come and join in. So we want everyone just have a lovely start to the day. They're welcomed in, and yeah, it's such a good wee start. So our plan was, I'll click on actually to this little bit. We were super ambitious, and on the first day we introduced it to the children, we also invited the parents in, which was crazy, as you can imagine, but such a lovely experience. So the parents came in and sat with their children, so we could just get the whole school community, you know, the children, parents, staff, everyone on board. A huge shout out needs to go to our Sport for Learning workers. They basically run the Magic Breakfast for us. They run breakfasts in a blether. They take an order. So either the day before, the children decide what they want, or classes run it slightly differently now. Class teachers kind of choose how they want to do it. So one class have magnets, and the children just in the morning come in, put their little magnet on, whether they want a bagel or toast or cereal, and then support staff go away, and as you can see from the wee photos there, they have little conveyor belts of somebody cuts, somebody butters, somebody toasts, and then they deliver that to every child in every class in the school. The children get their plates and napkins and everything ready to go, so that teachers and staff know if they've got a plate, they're waiting on something cooked, or if they get their bowl, they can go and self-serve. You can see some teachers have set up little cereal stations where the children can serve themselves. Excuse me. Some of the younger ones, we obviously we kind of have them, we queue, and do they want Weetabix or Rice Krispies, or what would they like? So it's such a lovely morning routine.
We decided to use proper bowls and proper plates, and, you know, normal cutlery, so that we can make the breakfast experience also a learning experience for the children, because a lot of our children at lunchtimes, you know, tend not to use cutlery. They tend to choose the finger foods, that kind of thing. So it's also setting up like their skills for life as well.
Yeah, and it also, we get them then to the older children collect, and they do the dishes and that sort of wee classroom job. They rotate the jobs of collecting in the plates, handing them out, washing them, and drying them. So that's sometimes a laugh, sometimes not. So when we first got the parents in back in April 24, we did a little questionnaire with them. So this is just a wee summary of some of the questions, but we asked them, you know, does your child eat breakfast? And the majority said yes, slight majority, 52%. We asked the parents, did they think this would have an impact on their timekeeping? And 44% thought yes, it would have an impact on their attendance, a positive impact. And we asked them, did we think it would have an impact on their finances? And we got a bit of a mixed review, but that was back when we started. So I'm pleased to say that we've had a more positive response. Just in November there, we had the parents in again, and we asked similar questions. And we asked them, you know, does your child talk about school? And you can see talk about having breakfast, and it's an overwhelming 87% absolutely talk about having breakfast. You'll hear from the children later, but bagels are apparently a Miller classic. So you will hear how much they love the bagels. We asked them, do they enjoy it? And again, 87%, yep, the children love it. Again, simple majority do have breakfast before they come to school, and positive impact on finances again, and you know, quite a high, nearly 5 stars there for how the children rate the Magic Breakfast. But yeah, when you hear the children talking about it, you'll understand how much they love it. Thank you. So just a wee quick comparison to show you that it's had a positive impact on our attendance. That was the parents, did they think it would? And you can see the huge impact it's had on even the parents' opinion of it and their thoughts on it. I think they can see it's a really good thing that we're doing here, and the children are fully engaged and invested. And, it sometimes can be that little hook that gets them in the morning if they're maybe a bit reluctant, and we say, come on in, we'll meet you at the gate, and then we'll get Mrs. So-and-so to get your bagel ready. And that can just be the wee hook to get them in the morning and get them a positive start to their day. And a slight positive impact on parents' finances, they said as well. So it's all going in the right direction. This little slide is just some of our staff, because like I say, this wouldn't happen without the amazing staff we've got here. So some quotes from teachers there, some support for learning workers, all positive, all love it. Sometimes, in fact, this morning, one of the classes were going on a trip, and the support for learning was like, what about the breakfast? What about the breakfast? So she, instead of being out in the playground this morning, was like, well, I start the bakes. We've got 30 bagels to make for our class today. So yeah, everyone's fully invested and want to make sure the children get a great start to their morning. So yeah, lots of lovely comments there and that's only a wee snippet of the staff. I didn't get round everybody.
It's actually really positive to see, because they were a bit nervous when we started the Magic Breakfast off. They're like, here's Mrs. Pierce with one of our schemes. But actually, the fact that staff can eat with the children and they see the difference in the readiness to learn for the children, because prior to Magic Breakfast, there were children who were coming in hungry, despite the fact their parents might have said that they were having breakfast. It might have just been a biscuit or something. And now they're actually getting fed. It's made such a difference to their readiness to learn in the morning. It's also giving them that soft start. Like, they don't have to just blather to their friends, they can blather to the teacher. We encourage the staff to have breakfast as well. And I can tell you the smell that comes out of the rooms upstairs and downstairs from the infants prepare separate from the upper, but yeah, the smell is amazing when it comes out. So it makes you want to eat a bagel and things like that. In fact, just as we were just about to come on here, one of the Support for Learning workers knocked on the door to offer us a bagel. So yeah, it's definitely part of everyday life now here in our school.
This is just, I'm aware of time, so this is a really quick little snippet. These are some of the quotes that we've got shared in our dinner hall. In one of the previous slides, we had, a million reasons to eat breakfast, and these are just some quotes from the children that we've put up and posted up. And this is just a wee bit of data on how many of our children take part in this. You can see when we started, 80% of our children, and that's across the school, took breakfast. Now it's up to 83 of our children have breakfast. And some of the reasons they don't are they've had breakfast in the morning, they're not hungry. That's just their routine. They're already ready to go. But you can see there's whole classes there. Some of our new primary ones, a load of them are coming in and are loving it.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you both so much for bringing so much joy. Although my tummy started rumbling partway through all those descriptions of yummy bagels and Weetabix and porridge and beans. So a really lovely way to start the day. Thank you. And you've also had a thank you, Amanda and Lorraine, from Sonia for introducing her to a new word, blether. So a big thank you for that as well. So I think we're now bringing Julie back onto the screen as well. And we're going to open it up to questions from all of the attendees, hopefully. So I will come to Lorraine and Amanda first, if that's all right. One of the questions, and then we'll come to Julie. But as children get older, do you see a difference in terms of their I suppose, keenness or interest or reluctance to access breakfast? One of the things we're really conscious of as we start on our new strategy is thinking about children and young people at every stage and every age of their educational journey, and just interested in what you see in your school as they grow up.
I think because it's all the way through the school, it's part of everyday culture in our school. And the good thing is the high school that we link into have a Magic Breakfast Club first thing in the morning that anyone can attend, so they can continue that on into secondary as well. So I don't think we have any less of an uptake. In fact, we hear children kind of putting their hands up in class constantly, asking to go and get refills of milk and things like that, you know, in the upper school. And the big ones, sometimes a couple of them will go down with the wee ones and have breakfast and things like that. So no, I don't see it waning. You know, certainly primary 7's right next door to my office, and that's like kind of 11-year-olds. And, you know, I see them taking breakfast frequently. In the morning, most of them, and like the cereals in the class, they just go and help themselves and things like that. And even wanting to do the dishes and things like that, there's always children wanting to do it. So no, I would say because it's part of our whole school culture that we don't really have that kind of stigma of, oh, I don't need breakfast now. But parents have become reliant on it now, in terms of like they can save that 10 or 15 minutes getting their children fed, because some of them are not wanting to eat at that time in the morning, because they're getting it in school. So it has made a difference to our late coming as well. But no, we haven't seen any decrease down. It'd be interesting to link in with Castlemilk High to see, now that we've done it for over a year, how many of our first years are now accessing their breakfast club in the mornings before school.
Brilliant, thank you. And Julie?
I think, you know, what my colleagues there are saying, Scottish colleagues are saying, is absolutely right. It's about, it's the culture of it is so important. What I would say is that I think what's really important is the value that Magic Breakfast holds and promotes, that it is stigma-free and that it's universal to everyone, makes a very large difference to older children, because children become much more acutely aware as they head towards teenage years of where they see a differential of treatment or think that they may be judged for a particular thing. So I think Magic Breakfast's commitment to that and support with that has been enormous in terms of supporting that older children will also select to have breakfast.
Brilliant, thank you. And I mean, one of the things we have been really focused on, and as I say, an interesting day to have a magic morning, because we're waiting to hear whether we've succeeded, is trying to protect the breakfast provision for about 900 schools supporting secondary age pupils who have been historically getting National School Breakfast Programme support. So we'll wait and see if that does come through. I'm going to give you guys a moment to think, and then I'll pick up a question that's come through for me probably more. So after that, I'm going to ask what you think the big opportunities, and I suppose where you see from your perspective opportunities and excitement in Magic Breakfast's new strategy. So you can think about that. A couple of questions that have come through, I think, are thinking about how does Magic Breakfast work in partnership with other charities, and also how do we, you know, tackle those root causes of child hunger. And I think in both of your presentations, it highlighted issues that are beyond, as it were, the school gates, and actually opportunities for Magic Breakfast to explore new opportunities. So Julie, I was struck by the fact that you spoke about 70 languages or more being, you know, spoken in your school, and thinking about how we enable and increase awareness, understanding and inclusivity of our breakfast provision and breakfast provision overall, to include different cultures, different languages. We know that English as an additional language or as a second language can sometimes be a barrier for pupils accessing provision, because their parents just may not be aware of it if the promotional materials are only in certain languages. So I think there's an opportunity for us to enable, alongside schools, you know, translation and more inclusive provisions through our equity, diversity and inclusion lens. Another example is Lorraine and Amanda, you speaking about what we'd call almost like that food desert, the lack of a supermarket in your community. And we know, again, that food system that children, that families exist in is so broken. And so we work really closely in partnership with other charities who are, I guess, addressing the sharp end of that broken food system, the likes of Trustee, Fair Share, Felix Project, who either are providing emergency food parcels or looking to address food waste and provide surplus food in different ways. So we work with those types of partners on the food system, Food Foundation as well. but also thinking about how we can better understand some of the areas that are, I suppose, beyond the scope of our specific expertise. So a lot of partnership has been established in the last year, for instance, with charities working with children and families who live with additional needs or disabilities, so that we could advocate with real confidence and clarity about what changes need to be made in the English government's policy to make their provision more inclusive in special schools and for pupils with SEND who are accessing mainstream schools. So I think a few different routes and opportunities just there. But what we want to do is, as I say, take that much more systemic view, looking at the root causes and those roots in. So hopefully that's picked up on some of the questions that came in. And so I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Julie, if you don't mind. Where do you see the opportunities, I guess, in the new strategy, and where do you see the excitement in a car manor perspective?
I think there is, in terms of looking at sort of structural and cultural violences that occur, as a result of poverty, then there is something really powerful in how we build communities and build cohesion within communities. And I think breakfast really does offer that as a social time where children do blather or talk, or do activity and things where they learn about each other, they learn about each other's ways of life, and that universality of that is huge. I am stunned that there is a universal language, and I believe there is a universal language, and it is not English. It is the language of the bagel, and I'm profoundly surprised that it seems to be a hugely popular choice, particularly for our older children in school, particularly to sit people round a table or standing chatting in a playground, or coming to a window where you are seeing groups of people who are not necessarily always friends all of the time, but that sense of building that. And I think for us as a school, it's the flexibility to offer food at a number of different points in a number of different ways is a really exciting opportunity. I hope that the government will take, in terms of not just considering breakfast to be sitting at a table in a club on a particular day, because what we have found is that connected start to a day helps build our community as a school, and more broadly, because of the way that it supports families and all of those issues that we're talking about not having a supermarket, or actually not having the money to even go to a shop if there is one. If you do go to one, the quality isn't right. So in terms of building a healthier, more cohesive community, I think that's what we see as, certainly as a school, as a real opportunity, and to do that in a way that feels ethical because of the partners that Magic Breakfast works with. There is that sense of how that's modelled and in the way that we would choose to work.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Julie. And then I'm conscious of time, but Amanda, Lorraine, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of Scotland and the Scottish Government, children are not entitled to a free breakfast service. So the one that runs from the council, children pay for it unless they're entitled to free school meals, which quite often, with the way the benefits caps have worked, is that's one of the ones that they don't get entitled to, because they maybe get benefit for something else. So it makes a massive difference for a school like ours to be able to provide breakfast, and we couldn't do that without all the funding that the Magic Breakfast gives us, in terms of all the cereal, all the food, all the porridge, and the variety that we get as well. And don't forget the Magic Bagel. But it's actually the variety that we can offer the children then opens up their palates and their experience of what breakfast is, because breakfast sometimes is just a slice of toast to them at the weekends and things. And we've got children in our enhanced nurture provision who actually go to different mainstream schools, and they come to our provision a couple of days a week, and they're saying, why can't we have this in our primary school? This is amazing. So, it is very much appreciated. you know, everything that Magic Breakfast gives us. And in terms of looking forward, you know, I've been spreading the word in Scotland around the Magic Breakfast. I've talked at Nurture courses about it and things like that, sent information out to multiple head teachers and things who've come on board with it. So it's about letting people know, because you know what, money's tight. It's tight in the government level, it's tight at school level, and it's tight in families as well. And giving them that nurturing start to the day, we can prove from the statistics we've shown you, like, what a difference that has made to children every day. If we can't get them into school, they're not learning. And if they're not learning, they're not providing a workforce for the future. So, you know, starting as simple as having a magic breakfast in the morning gives them that magic, as the children said, magic feeling that then lets them concentrate, lets them learn and things like that. At government level, I think, you know, it would be good to, to have provided that for schools, but they just don't have the money to do it. And so we're so grateful to the Magic Breakfast and all the people who fund the Magic Breakfast for everything that they've given us.
Oh, thank you so much. And if only John Swinney were on the call, but we do have Scottish elections next year, so we'll absolutely be sure to make those points for you as well. Thank you so much to our speakers, obviously, but also to everyone who's attended and joined this morning, and to the brilliant team who have made it all happen behind the scenes, hopefully in a seamless way for all of you. As I mentioned, the Magic Morning will be available to watch back on our YouTube channel, and we'll send it out to you all afterwards. But just a very big thank you, not just for helping us get to this point in time in Magic Breakfast journey, but for the continued support and contributions over the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.